So this is called resiliency and being a care partner. And we use that word caregiver a lot, and we are really kind of starting to move more to the language of care partner. And you're seeing that across the board throughout the industry. You're starting to hear professional care partners rather than caregivers, family care partners rather than caregivers. And so we're kind of doing that also as a shift in our culture. And if you think about it, I actually was on a program. Our friends at Brookdale did a great program last week about care partner versus caregiver. And, we just really have talked a lot about it here. And so you'll hear me using that term, care partner. And so I think that's kind of the way that we're shifting over to that. So I think we'll all probably be using that term very soon. One of the things I wanted to talk about before we get started, though, is in counseling, and those of you who get my emails, I said on Monday, in therapy, we talk about the number 28, as 28 is kind of that magic number. It takes 28 days to make or break a habit. The month of February just happens to have 28 days in it. So it's a great time, if you don't feel like you are already resilient, to do some things to practice becoming more resilient. If you can commit to something for 28 days, research shows that it becomes a habit. Sometimes we need to stop something. And so we may commit for 28 days, I'm not going to have any more of those diet sodas. For 28 days, I'm going to stop whatever it is that we need to get away from. But I encourage you to take advantage of that. We're just a couple of days in, so you still have plenty of time. But again, you do have to do it consistently. And so we're going to actually go through at the end of this some resiliency exercises. You have to do it consistently, and you have to do it every day for it to become a habit. And becoming resilient can become a habit. It's something that you can do. All right, let me advance my slides here. For those of you, again, that are needing a continuing education credit for social work and for LPC, we'll send you that information this afternoon, and you can get a 1-hour credit for this. Here's our objectives, the things that we're going to look at today. And last month, we talked about compassion fatigue and caregiver burnout, care partner burnout. And that's kind of going to overlap with this. It's going to kind of lay over this. If you didn't see that one, that's on our YouTube page also. And it has some things that go along with this about being a care partner and starting to have some burnout or compassion fatigue. There's also a term going around right now called pandemic fatigue or COVID fatigue, where we're just tired of it. We're tired of hearing about it. We're tired of having to follow these rules and do things that are so different from what we were used to. So I encourage you to look at that on our YouTube page as well. And anytime we do something that has CEs with it, I have to give you my information. So there's my information. I'm a licensed professional counselor, worked for the Alzheimer's Association, and here I am the Director of Education and Family Support Services. So I get to do great things like run our support groups and then be part of our education programs. And my passion is getting to speak to families and speak to the public, professionals and families, about those who have a loved one that has dementia. All right, so what is resilience? I thought this picture here summed it up perfectly, because that last bullet point says the ability to return to its original shape and size after being compressed. And I was thinking about our lives as caregivers, and boy, don't we sometimes feel quite compressed. And of course, that's talking about an object that can pop back, that can come back to its original shape. But look at the definition for what it means for us: the capacity to recover quickly from difficulties, a toughness, and then the ability to adjust easily to adversity or change. And I thought that is the definition of caregiver there. We are flexible. We learn how to adjust. We learn how to adjust in a moment's notice. And part of being a caregiver is being resilient. And whether you recognize it or not, I think you're going to find as we go through this, you are quite resilient. And then there's other things that you can do to become even more resilient. I'm having a hard time with my slides. There we go. So we've all had these disruptions in our expectations about how we thought our relationships would turn out. Whether we are a spouse of someone with dementia, whether we're a professional care partner, or whether we're an adult child who's now taking care of a parent, or maybe we're a friend, or maybe we're a sibling, this isn't what we thought would happen. This was not the plan. We never saw this coming. And typically with dementia, it's a total shock whenever we figure out exactly what's happening with our loved one. But again, with that resiliency, we're able to do that very thing where we get completely compressed and then we return to our original shape. So personal resilience also has a definition. And here it is: the ability to maintain well being and effective functioning in the face of high levels of disruption. And I found these photos yesterday that I thought, thinking of last year, thinking of 2020, talk about being resilient, having to dig deep and find that resiliency, being able to adapt well in the face of adversity, trauma, threats, and stress. Now, whether we're a professional care partner or we are a personal care partner, we've had all of that adversity. You very well may have had some trauma. You very well may have had threats, and we most definitely have stress. We learn to adjust to an undesirable reality. Isn't anything that anybody would choose. We wouldn't choose it for ourselves. We wouldn't choose it for our loved one, but we come to accept that it is our reality. We learn how to bounce back from those difficulties, whether it's with our own families, in our relationships, because all of our relationships change once we have a loved one who's diagnosed with dementia. Our health changes. Our health can really take a toll. We can have issues at work, at home, our finances. We master the art of drawing from our mental, our emotional, our physical, and our spiritual energy. However, we can start to run out of that energy, and then we can face a crisis ourselves. The good news is, though, research has shown that we can actually develop resiliency, and that's what we're going to talk about today. So if you think about a professional care partner, they're performing their service in an environment that is completely surrounded many times with unexpected events from multiple residents, from multiple clients, from multiple patients, and then having to almost switch gears and going from family to family to family, or resident to resident to resident. So this resiliency is not only for professional care partners, but also for family care partners. And so what is different about being a care partner of somebody who has dementia versus being a care partner from somebody that has some other type of a disease? Dementia affects the entire family. We know that. And care partners or caregivers are often called the hidden patient because of what their loved one's disease actually does to them. Because think about what we're going through as care partners of those that have dementia. It's not a typical disease model. Their brain cells are literally dying. We're losing them a little bit at a time. And so we live with what is called ambiguous grief. And ambiguous grief is whenever we are mourning someone who's still alive. We're grieving the living. That's called ambiguous grief. And that is one of the things that makes having somebody with dementia very different from having someone with some other type of a disease. We also live with what's called anticipatory grief. Again, whether one is a professional care partner or a family care partner, because we're anticipating what's to come. And with this disease, we don't know what's to come. We might look at other people, we might look at others who have had dementia, but we don't know, is our loved one going to go down that path, or are we going to go down a completely different path? So care partners for people with dementia are particularly vulnerable to burnout because of the long process of decline. Our loved one may live anywhere from 3 to 20 plus years. We don't know. We know there's averages, somewhere between 3 and 20, and that's a big range. So as care partners, again, professional and family, we feel grief, We feel loss, very similar to having a death in the family, except it isn't sudden. It's spread out over the course of many years. And that typically is why you'll find people who work in the field of memory care or who have a loved one with some type of dementia have developed a very, very high level of resiliency. Again, whether you realize it or not. I do want to mention this because so many times people are not aware of these numbers and how staggering, how high they are. Care partner spouses between the ages of 66 and 96 who are experiencing the stress of being a care partner have a 68% higher risk of dying than of people the same age that are not caregivers. That's the person taking care of someone with dementia dying before the patient does. And then adult children. This is new from sharecare.com. 63% higher risk of dying over the course of caregiving for 4 or more years because you're doing that sandwich. You're taking care of your parents, but you're also still taking care of children that are at home or grandchildren that are at home. And so now we have seen this huge spike in deaths in adult children who are taking care of somebody who has dementia. These are some more statistics that I like to make sure and share. These are new. These have come out since COVID. 41% of women care partners and 54% of men care partners say, these are the ones that admit to it, that they are coping by using alcohol. And we're finding this since the isolation, since the pandemic, these numbers have gone up. They used to be in 30, 35%. In October of last year, they had gone up some, and then these are the most recent ones. Here's another one that's gone up. 51% of care partners admit to overusing prescription medications. And most of the times what you'll find is that they don't feel too bad about that because it is a prescription. But maybe it's PRN, maybe it's supposed to be as needed and they're taking it on a regular basis. Or maybe it's supposed to be 1 and they're taking 2. And these are caregivers of those with dementia. 16% of people start to smoke again after many years of not smoking. And then the big number, 72% of people who are taking care of somebody who has dementia are overweight. And because that's an easy go-to, that's an easy stress relief. We also get pleasure whenever we eat. And so 72% though are overweight. So let's look at the warning signs of burnout and compassion fatigue. And again, we looked at these last month, but I want to use this to then lead into how we become more resilient. This is a big list. If you look at these and you see some of these emotional or physical signs in yourself, take them very seriously. If someone else has come up to you and they've pointed them out, and maybe you caught yourself getting that first one angry because they pointed something out to you, stop and think about, was there a reason they came to you and they said that? Or are they trying to get you to see something in yourself that you're not seeing yourself? Or are you seeing these things? You notice number 1 there under emotional is anger. Anger is our easiest emotion to go to. If you're catching yourself being short with others, more so than you normally do, anger is that easy emotion to go to because we can get people to be quiet and we can get people to leave us alone by being angry. But what we're not doing is we're not dealing with what's the reason that we're so angry. 9 times out of 10, when you really dig down into anger, it's fear. We're afraid of something. And when we have a loved one that has dementia, we've got a lot to be afraid of if we're not educated about it and if we don't have support. You'll also notice under emotional there's anxiety and depression. In therapy, when we're talking about anxiety and depression usually is when we're kind of getting hung up on the past and we're doing a lot of woulda, coulda, shouldas. Anxiety typically is whenever we're getting hung up in the future and we're doing a lot of what ifs. Over on physical, one of the ones that stands out and that I hear from a lot of family members is starting to have some gastrointestinal problems, and they're not relating it to stress. Whenever we are under a tremendous amount of stress and we're dumping cortisol in our brain, that brain chemical, because we go into that fight, flight, freeze. It stops our digestive system. So when it stops our digestive system, it can cause us to then develop this pattern of constipation, diarrhea, nausea, IBS, irritable bowel syndrome. That can be directly tied to caregiving. So these are called the pillars of resilience. If you do very much information on resiliency and being a care partner, you can find anywhere from 4 to 10 pillars. But I thought these 4, just about everything could fit in these 4. So they are mental, physical, social, and spiritual. If one of these gets a little bit out of whack, though, it can throw us off. This is where we want to try to keep a balance in all 4 of these areas. And we're going to talk about ways that you can do that. And again, you're going to get these slides because I thought this just had some really good information on it and maybe had some things falling under the pillars that you might not have thought of before. So first, let's talk about some mental resilience. Things that we can do. And all of these are things that we can do that they don't necessarily take a whole lot of time. You don't have to go out and buy any kind of equipment. They are just things that we have to focus on. And I said earlier, for those of you who came in a little bit late, we know that it takes 28 days to make or break a habit. February has 28 days in it, and we are just on the 3rd day. So if we can commit to doing something for 1 month, we can create a new habit. And these things under mental resilience, you just have to make up your mind to do it and then to stick with it. And if for some reason you don't do it for that whole day, you get back and you do it again the next day and you make it a habit. So whenever you look at mental resilience in a care partner, one of the first things is positivity. Finding hope even in the darkest times, that is the foundation of resilience. And we know in caregiving, if we aren't able to find that hope, we're going to spend a whole lot more crying than we're going to be doing anything else. And that's going to be part of it. And that is going to come and go. But we can work on having a positive outlook. So having a positive outlook can many times be the difference in your ability to keep going in the face of difficulties. It brings you positive energy and it helps you use your stressors to create resilience. I love that picture there of the one little smiley in the whole world of all the frowny faces. Your brain does not know when you put on a smile whether it's real or not. You can fake. You can make your brain think that you really are happy, that you really are having a good time by smiling. You've heard that fake it till you make it. Having your voice up, talking at a pleasant tone. The more you do it, your brain adapts to that and you'll dump those feel good hormones instead of that cortisol and that adrenaline. Having confidence in yourself, caregivers are really bad about beating themselves up, but figuring out what are your strengths. You've got strengths in doing this and believing that you can use those strengths. You can use challenges as an opportunity to learn, grow, and develop. We're going to have things come up in caregiving that we are never, ever going to think we would have faced in our lives with our loved ones. Many times those things come up in the bathroom. I didn't think I'd ever be helping my parent, my spouse in the bathroom. I can't do it. Having the confidence that, yes, I can do this. I've just got to figure out how to do it. And then how can we grow? What can we learn from this? Having structure, having a routine, this is going to help us tremendously with our mental resilience. Learning how to prioritize, figuring out what are we going to spend a whole lot of time on. And those of you who've been doing this for a long time know that you get to the point where does it really matter becomes a big thing. I share the story of a client that I had when I worked for the Alzheimer's Association who wanted to continue to go to church, but her husband did not want to wear anything but pajama pants. That's all he wanted to wear. He would put on a button-up shirt and a tie, but he wouldn't change out of pajama pants. So she wasn't going to church. She said, I can't take him to church in pajama pants. And I said, why can't you take him to church in pajama pants? Of all places where you should be able to go. You should be able to go to church in pajama pants. You've told him that he has Alzheimer's disease. And so she went. She stepped outside of her comfort zone. Nobody thought anything of it. She was then able to laugh about it later and go, I didn't go to church because I did. It didn't matter that he was in pajama pants. So figuring out at the end of the day, is this going to matter? Changing clothes, combing hair, those type things. Yes, they've always done it, but maybe at this point in the disease, they're not going to do it. So we're going to put a cap on instead of combing our hair. And it's okay. It's okay. And when we learn to roll with that, that is resilience. When we don't let that kind of stuff keep us up at night, that's mental resilience. So part of that is taking risk and doing something that maybe isn't comfortable. A lot of people will talk about going out to dinner, and we have little cards, and you can make your own little cards, but we have little cards the size of a business card, and it says, thank you for being patient. My loved one has, and you can put dementia or something like that, but still being able to go out to dinner, still being able to have normalization, even though your loved one has dementia. And then this last one here, I put embrace the awful. I originally had embrace the sucky, and I thought, well, that doesn't sound very professional. Embrace the awful. We just have to learn to embrace some of this. What choice do we have? We don't have a choice. We can get mad. We can have a tantrum. We can cuss and kick and scream and yell. What choice do we have? We've got to power through this, and we've got to power through the most challenging parts of being a care partner. This is actually our time to shine. It's very easy to shine when things are going really well. It's easy to take care of somebody who has dementia when they're completely compliant with everything we ask them to do. But what about when it's challenging? That's when you as a care partner will shine. And that's when you'll get to the other side of this, and you'll get past that challenging behavior that they've got right now, because it will pass. I promise you, it will pass. Now, they may pick up another challenging behavior, but the one they're doing right now, it will pass. And you will shine. And we don't do enough of, you know what, I did that well. I came through that and I did that well. Or being able to share what you did with other people. That's why the support groups are so important, because boy, do we learn from other people that are on the support groups, and we get ideas. So being mentally resilient to me was number one. So that's why I put it first. The second one is physical resilience. And this is the one where I see so many caregivers are lacking. I mentioned that I used to go in people's homes and I helped them stay home as long as possible. And then I helped them place when it was an appropriate time to place. And I gave you the statistics earlier, because I stood at too many funerals of the caregivers because they weren't doing this right here, self-care. I had people who were cutting their own blood pressure medication in half so that they wouldn't have to go back to the doctor. Every 3 months, they only had to go every 6, because they were giving themselves totally and completely to the care of their loved ones. I had another woman who was in the shower with her husband, who was much bigger than she was. He fell on her. She broke her hip. He was fine. But she ended up in a rehab hospital. The caregiver did, because she wasn't taking care of herself. She wasn't putting her needs out there anywhere. She was putting her loved ones before hers. So physical resilience, if you'll think of it this way, every time we take care of our nutrition, our strength, our rest, and our endurance, think of it like a health bank account. We're putting in a deposit. And these are 4 places that nobody else can put a deposit in for you. No one else can come and put a deposit into your nutrition or to your exercise or your rest or your endurance. You have to do that yourself. 28 days. That's where I'm going to challenge you. 28 days. Make a change in one of these areas. We make deposits when we do each of these things that are healthy for our physical body. And the first one and the easiest one, I think, to change is our nutrition. Because look what it's doing for us. Our immune system, it reduces inflammation, which they're showing links between inflammation and dementia all the time now. It reinforces our mental health, and then it helps us process stress. And that's what we're talking about, living in stress, and reinforces our mental health. All of you know what I'm talking about. If you've had that big carb-laden meal and then you get the brain fog, I want to go take a nap. That's not good for our mental health. May have tasted good at the time, but we've got to think ahead. Is this good for me? Is this good for my heart? Is this good for my brain? Is this good for my loved one? It's what I'm putting in my mouth going to benefit me in being able to take care of somebody else. Strength, which falls into exercise. It is going to oxygenate the body, whether it is something as simple as doing chair exercises. Having that medicine ball, that 8-pound ball, and you're just putting it back and forth over your head during the commercials. You're getting oxygenated blood to your brain, which is going to help you decrease stress and think a little more clear whenever you are in crisis. Rest and recovery. This can be the one that can be a little more difficult to get. The other three you can work toward on a daily basis. So many times our rest, and that is when our body's recovering, depends on when our loved one is resting, because we are sleeping when they are sleeping, but trying to get that quality rest so that it improves our concentration, our memory, our energy level, and our mood. And then endurance. We've got to keep in mind with dementia, this isn't a sprint. There's nothing about dementia that's a sprint. This is a marathon. And we don't know how long the marathon is. Because with dementia, we don't have that checklist where we can go, okay, we've done that, we've done that. We don't know how long we're going to do this. So we've got to look at it as a marathon. Okay, the statistics say, let's say my loved one is 60, so they're early onset. And the statistics say that they should live about 5 years, but I'm now in the 7th year. That 5 years is the statistic. That means there's a lot of people that go to the 10th year. I've got to be up for the marathon. If I'm not taking care of myself, I'm not going to be up for that marathon. So to develop your endurance, you've got to find sources of support as well. And as caregivers, asking for help is something that we have to learn to do. And that's the third one, is this social resilience. I found this over here on the slide where it says life as a caregiver. Asking for help is not a sign of weakness. It is a reach of caring. Allowing others to help you is a gift. It's not a burden. If you're a spouse taking care of your loved one and you've got adult children, let them help you. Let them be part of their daddy's care. Let them be part of their mama's care. They want to do it. Most kids want to do it. But what we'll say is, I don't want to be a burden. They've got their own kids. Let them do it. Allow them. That's also going to help their relationship with their dad or with their mom to be able to say, I was able to do this for my dad. I was able to do this for my mom. I helped my mom take care of my dad. Let them do that. You're actually giving them a gift by doing that. So we found out in this last year what isolation does to us. We don't do well when we're alone. We weren't meant to be alone. We weren't created to be alone. Those of you who know anything about the Bible know it's in Genesis 2 where the very first negative thing was said in the Bible. It is not good that man should be alone. We're not meant to be alone. We're meant to be social. So we have found ways this past year to stay social by doing things like this through Zoom. So I encourage you, if you aren't already doing that, if you don't have a support team in place, get yourself a support team. Because think about it, by having that support team, you're able to go beyond your own energy because you can pull from other people's energy. Learning how to ask for help and relying on others is one of the most difficult parts of taking care of someone. But once you do it and you allow others to come in and to start helping you, you'll wonder why you didn't do it sooner. I hear it over and over and over in support group. Oh, I don't know why I didn't allow those kids to come in here sooner. I don't know why I didn't get some help in here sooner. So I encourage you to please do that. Find a support group. We've got 3. Alzheimer's Association has several. They're all over the place, different times, different days. You can contact me. I can get you help finding one if you can't do one of ours. And now you can take part in a support group that's anywhere in the United States. We've got a lady who comes onto ours regularly who's in California because it works for her. So that's the good thing about switching over to Zoom. Find somebody that can listen to you. If it's your minister, if it is the neighbor, and you may have to tell them, I don't need you to give me any advice. I just need you to hear me. And it's okay for you to say that. Friends and family, delegating and engaging everyone, allow them to use their special gifts. So maybe your son-in-law, maybe he wouldn't be the one to sit with your loved one while you go somewhere. Maybe he's not comfortable doing that, but maybe he can mow your grass. Or maybe he can go and take the car into the shop. Let him do it. Let them use what they're good at to help you. Keeping yourself surrounded by positive people so you can feed off their energy and to help you bounce back. Sometimes we have to put some boundaries with those people that are always bringing us down, and then making sure you do have that support team in place. And your support team is not only family and friends, it's your neighbors, it's community resources, it's us, it's your church. And then your professional care managers are also part of a support. And then the last one is called spiritual resilience. And then we're going to talk about how to strengthen our resilience. So gratitude. There has been so much research done on gratitude. And some people have gotten out of where they just kind of use it as oh yeah, but look at this. My day begins and ends with gratitude. When you find your meaning in helping others to help yourself can build your own resilience. And then shifting your reference, we can really get to a point in caregiving where we ask this question a lot. Why me? Why me? This is a trap. This is a trap your mind plays on you. And it leads directly to anger, and it leads directly to depression. Because if we start going through that why me, why me, why me, why me, we can get ourselves worked up in a hurry. So we've got to shift our focus over to the solution, not the problem. It is me. And then if you really want to challenge yourself, why not me? And work on that question. Perspective. And perspective is our own language. Are we exaggerating it? Are we using words like, I was devastated when? It was a disaster when I walked in and Dad had toothpaste all over his face. Was it a disaster? But when we use words like that, it makes us think, oh, that was the worst day ever when they put toothpaste on their face. Was that the worst day ever? It's perspective. Take a moment on it and reflect. Watch your words. One of the ways you can do that is when you're just going through and doing some reflection, is to go back and question yourself. Was it really the worst day ever? And one thing that you can do is act like you're somebody on the outside looking in. Think about the day that you had and you're outside the window and you're looking in. What if somebody else saw that? Would they call it the worst day ever? Would they call it devastating? Counting your blessings. And again, beginning and end of the day. So how to strengthen your resilience. We would not just automatically jump into a workout program for our body. So we don't need to just automatically jump into a workout program for resilience. We have to warm up. And the best thing that we can do whenever we are working on being resilient is deep breathing, because we can do it anytime, anywhere, and learning to do this. And if you aren't already doing it, please start doing this. This is one of those things you can challenge yourself to do in the next 28 days. Before you go into the room, before you go to get your loved one up, before you go to take them to their bathroom, before you do the shower, before you answer the phone, take that deep breath. And I do what I just did. I smile because I'm setting my tone. Even if it's before I answer that phone. Hi, hey, what's going on? I was just thinking about you. Whenever it's my loved one calling me for the 30th time, I'm setting me, taking that deep breath. We're getting ready to go in to do the shower. Here we go. Keeping your own mind active and engaged, and then doing some things that bring you joy and staying connected to your meaning and purpose. And we're going to look at some things that hopefully will bring you joy if you're not doing it already. So how to strengthen your resilience. I love this picture right here. Pushing that ball up that hill. Positive self-talk. Those of you who are on the support group, I mentioned the article that I read a couple of weeks ago about Navy SEALs, and that the number one thing that they are trained to do is to reframe the situation that they're walking into. It didn't have anything to do with their physical, how strong they are. It has to do with resilience and that positive self-talk. But negative self-talk actually comes naturally to us. Beating ourselves up is much easier than patting ourselves on the back, but we work better in a crisis with positive self-talk. So we've got to reframe it. Yesterday, when I was putting the finishing touches on this program, I kept thinking of this. We've all heard it, that quote, "That which does not kill me makes me stronger." And I got to thinking, where did that come from? So I looked it up. It's a German philosopher who throughout the course of his life suffered multiple physical ailments and emotional and mental health issues. That's where that came from. Leaving our comfort zone, dealing with challenges, allowing us to have a sense of control. When we deal with it, we have some control. We don't want to be Scarlett O'Hara. We'll deal with it tomorrow. Because think about the times when you have had that to-do list and you're able to check a couple of things off of it, that feeling of accomplishment. So leaning into the challenge and moving forward with it. So we're going to go over some activities that you can do to actually build your resilience. And here's where you can find them. And there are many, many more than we're going to talk about today. I just chose a few. I chose the ones that I've either done or that I thought looked really interesting to try. And I put the site on here. It's called positivepsychology.com. I go to this site all the time to get information for helping those that are caregivers. But this one is a storytelling activity. And it's where we reframe or we recreate our story, because we're really bad about ruminating and going back and back and back and back and reliving. But what if we created it in a healthier storyline? We foster our sense of control and how we interpret the events. Individuals who engaged in therapeutic writing, many of you journal, and I encourage you to journal if you don't, experienced more well-being and happiness months later by being able to look back in their journals and see how far they had come. So I encourage you to start doing that. And several of these are going to have to do with writing. You don't have to have a big fancy journal. You can have a notebook. You can have just a binder. So the exercise for this one, consider an example in your life where you continue to repeat a story that produces worry or anxiety. So typically with caregiving, this is going to be looking toward the future. This is going to be your what if statements. So the challenge here is to think about those what if statements. Try writing out a new version with a more positive interpretation, and then recognize how your feeling changes in the process. If you hit the bed at night and you start the what ifs, what this is saying to do is to write it down exactly how you're thinking it, and then reframe it, write it again, change the story, put it on paper, because we don't know how it's going to turn out. But then how does that make you feel to change that story? Here's the next one. This is called a purpose reflection activity. And that is not a typo in that first box that says, why are you? Jamie was helping me with this and she said, are you sure that's supposed to say, why are you? It is supposed to say, why are you? This is something where we really reflect back as to our purpose. Why are you? Why are you at this time, right here, right now, in this situation? thinking it through. Why do you get up in the morning? This is our purpose. What keeps you awake at night? And allowing yourself to be very honest with these. If you write down what you think is the right answer, there is no right answer, by the way, you're not helping anybody. Being honest with these. This is just for you. If you met an older version of yourself, what sage advice would they give to you? It's just some really good journal prompts also. And here's a gratitude activity. We had talked about gratitude. A lot of people keep gratitude journals, or even if they don't write it down, they may do what that first bullet point there, select from the following every day for the next week, write down 3 to 5 things each day that you're grateful for. A lot of people will start their day with this before their feet hit the ground. I'm thankful for, I woke up this morning and I do have another day of getting to provide care for my loved one, of being on this journey with them. Today we're going to, and kind of starting the day. And then before you go to sleep at night also, running through that gratitude list. That is one of the things I started in these 28 days. That was one of mine that I'm doing, is keeping a gratitude list. And what I'm doing is every day I am writing down 5 things, and I'm making myself do a different 5 things every day. So by the time I get to the end of the month, I'll have 28 times 5 things that I am thankful for and grateful for. And then I'll be able to look back over that list. Writing a letter of gratitude to people who are special to you. A lot of people during the pandemic started actually doing handwritten letters again, going back to sending a card one. And then tell people you see every day what you appreciate about them. We need to hear it sometimes. We all need to hear that. This is one of my favorites, find something funny activity. And I had to put what I think is one of the funniest sketches on TV. Many of you will recognize this. There is Mrs. Huygens and Mr. Tudball from the Carol Burnett show. So this is my go-to for finding something funny. Laughter has been found to boost resilience. That's one that we can all get on board with. You can go to YouTube and type in funny videos, funny animal videos, funny baby videos, Carol Burnett, and just watch 10 minutes. Actually, the research shows you just have to watch 2 to 3 minutes of it to see a difference. This is asking you to do 10 minutes a day for 7 days. So here's one of the things that you can do. Write down the 3 of the funniest things that you have ever experienced, seen, or heard. Put them down on paper. Think back over your entire life. When are some times that you laughed so hard you had tears rolling down your face? And then go back to that time. You can almost use it like a guided imagery, going back to those times when we really laughed. And then, like I did this morning, I went and I pulled up a video of Carol Burnett and Tim Conway doing this sketch. And there's tons of them and they're hilarious. I sat here in my office laughing out loud. You can go back to that. That helps us become more resilient. And then you think about, why is that so funny to me? Why is that something that I still laugh out loud when I've seen it 50 times? Write these 3 funny things at the end of the day. Doing so will foster a new habit, and it may help you absorb the emotion as you're going to sleep, and it can actually help with your sleep so that we don't end the day thinking about things, but we end the day running back through that funny sketch. Finding the silver lining, and boy, do I see this one a lot. Finding the bright side, even in a very upsetting experience. Rather than focusing on the frustration of the experience, reflecting on the positive things that came of it. And one of the ones that the first thing that came to my mind, because I hear it said on the support group so often, is, I met you. Where this group of people's together on the support group going, I would have never known you had my loved one not developed dementia. And now I have this set of friends and I have these people that get what I'm talking about, and I've never known you. That's looking at the bright side. That's finding the silver lining. We talk about sharing music with our loved ones, and I would have never known that she liked to sing because she never sang before. But most people with dementia They'll get to a point where that's what they have left, is that rhythmic language, and they'll sing. And to see somebody whose mother had stopped talking, but then we discover she can still sing, and so they were holding hands and singing. They'd have missed out on that. Another one that came to mind was maybe the challenge offered you time to have a special talk with your loved one, or it allowed you to see the sunrise from a different place. I've had people say that to me. I was up so early changing the bedding that I went ahead and got my coffee and I walked outside, and I saw the most beautiful sunrise that I would not have seen had that not have happened. That's finding a silver lining. That's shifting how we think about it. This one's called a self-compassion activity. Again, we can be very critical of ourselves. Think about a difficult circumstance in your life that's been concerning you, something that you have going on right now. You can write down some details of the event and then think of it from, what if this were someone else telling you this story? What if this were your best friend telling you this story? What are some therapeutic answers that you would give to someone else? Talk to yourself the same way you would talk to someone else. Use the same tone that you would use with your best friend. Use it on yourself. Here's another one of my favorites. Finding an identity statement. I've got mine on there. It's the Serenity Prayer. Reciting a personalized identity statement that emphasizes a positive quality. You can take that deep breath before you open that door, or before we go into the bathroom, or before we're going to try to change clothes, or before we're going to brush our teeth, whatever it might be. I am confident and passionate. I am consistently excellent every day as a care partner, as a wife, and as a mother. Saying it to yourself. I put one in bold. A hard moment does not mean a hard rest of the day. A challenging moment does not mean the rest of the day is going to be challenging. This will not last forever. Saying that to yourself, putting it on a sticky note and sticking it right here on your computer screen. This too shall pass. I am resilient. I can ride this out and not let it get me down. May there be joy in this day, and may I bring joy to others. I am choosing grace in this moment. There's tons of them. You might choose a Bible verse. You might just have a go-to that you have. But using that identity statement, and you can do it with this next one, and it's called a highlight reel. And it's where for 60 seconds, and I would encourage you to do this, but we're going to start running out of time. So I'm going to encourage everybody to do this today at some point, maybe right when we're finished with this. Take 1 minute and go through the highlight reel of your life. Just stop for a minute. And if you were kind of doing a flashback over your life, and we're looking for highlights, not low lights, don't go there, care partners, because we tend to go to the low lights. Go to those highlights, a 60-second highlight of your life. 3 things you've done well. And then while you're thinking of those, be going back to that mantra that we just talked about. Taking those deep breaths, going through that highlight reel of your own life. It's good for resilience. Another thing we can do is to help others be more resilient. And by helping others, it actually helps us. So 4 ways that we can help another person be more resilient. Let's say you're the adult child and your parent is taking care of your other parent who has dementia. What are some things you might can do to support them? If you're a professional care partner, ways that we can help other professionals. Affirmation is huge. They might not even realize what they're doing. Help build up their own awareness of what they're doing and what they're doing right. Call them out on it. Having that environment that is encouraging rather than pointing out errors. Instead of discouraging, encouraging. Providing support in areas where they might be lacking. And then being a role model. When others see how you deal with challenges and bring a positive attitude and a strong set of problem-solving skills, they'll mirror you, they'll copy you. Here's our information, of course, how you can contact us here at the West Center. I appreciate your time. Let me go to the chat box. I saw a lot of things popping up in here. Oh, lots of great things. If anybody has any questions, comments, we are right at time. We've got about 2 minutes left. I will send you these slides today. You'll also get a copy of the recording. If you need a continuing education credit, that information will be in the email as well. Great comments. If everybody can see those, thanks so much. Yeah, definitely. Thank you for all that. All right, if nobody has anything, then I will see you next time. Hope to see you on another one of our programs soon. Thank you.